So land and property assets have become a retail, nicely packaged product sold on emotion. Dream home, great kitchen. They will say a kitchen, a bathroom, a main bedroom is what sells a property. The emphasis on selling and appeal to buyer. However, from the beginning of time, land and property assets were integral to our existence and building a legacy for family, a generational legacy, and in turning it into a retail product like our food system, we've lost the depth and we've lost the value and we've lost the nutrition, quite frankly. We now constantly, as buyers on the back foot, paying off a mortgage for 20 years. Massive commitment. I had a pivotal experience back in 2009 when I sold a house that I had designed with zero industry experience, zero knowledge of construction, and I got a 200% profit on the sale of that house. I built it straight from my imagination. I am a maker and a creator. You can see my face lights up when I talk about it. So I designed this house by imagination. My only qualification was I had done a fashion design diploma when I was 19. So I thought on the back of that I could certainly design a floor plan of my dream house. So what, lo and behold, I went out and I bought a graph pad and I dreamed up this design that I wanted for my home. And that is the design I handed to my draftsman, who then took it through town planning, got the plans approved, and that was the house we built. In fact, then the fun began because I also built it the way I wanted to. I didn't use any paint on the walls at all. I used soil from the site, red mud that we have in White River in South Africa. And on the other walls I used river sand and mixed that with bond for plaster, and we got these beautiful rich colors. It was incredible. It was just absolutely beautiful. It was such a fun experiment, and the fact that it worked just blew my mind. And I did things like I took industrial school seal windows and I stripped them down to raw steel. We sealed them, and I had a friend of mine make handmade panels to insert in these windows. They were cottage paints, so we inserted these windows here and there. And that's where my kids and I lived. I had come out of a divorce a few years earlier and walked away with nothing from a family business that I helped build. And I was able to build this house because of money I got from my father. I had not developed a personal career. Completely, very South African, very sort of almost like, look at that squirrel, isn't he freaking cute? We've got some guys sleeping rough here. It's quite short. Anyway, so I was able to build this house, and because I didn't know any better, I had the chutzpah to do it myself, and it ended up really changing my life. So the money I made at the back end 4 years after I had to sell because of, obviously, I hadn't followed a career. I had my life I have lived with so much fear around finances and money because of childhood wounds that I felt entirely ill-equipped to build a career. I don't know why, not logic. It's definitely a childhood wound which to this day I'm trying to sort it out. But what I want to get across is the fact that knowing nothing, I was able to make that amount of money, and that money is what saved myself and my children for years. So back to land and property assets. These days they are sold as a retail off-the-shelf product, and all the value has been removed already by the time the end user purchases, because it is the developer, it's the conveyancing attorney, it's the industries that have made the money on it. Why am I here? I'm here because that is not a feasible, sustainable model. And after I built that first house, I was able to repeat the process. I didn't build from scratch again, but I would take old structures, old buildings, and revamp them, literally rebuild them. I would also buy up land here and there and resell. That first house I built, I bought up some of the stands next door and resold them for like not even 10 times, like 1,000 times what they were worth, because when I went in, nobody else was interested in buying there. They were all looking at the turnkey, retail product. That's where people were buying, and that's where they feel safe. Most of the market feels safe. They see that as an investment, which it is not. The market, it's the developer and the builder and everybody else in the industry whose investment it is. There are rare occasions where a little money is made, sometimes with a plot and plan, but that has its own difficulties and risks. So the risk in buying a turnkey retail product is higher, but it's what is normalized, it's where people feel safe. And I have, over the years, since way back then, 2009, I have applied my belief that the end user, the buyer, is well able to make a solid profit on a land and property asset, number one. And number two is that land and property assets are generational and they need to be stewarded. If they are bought correctly at the right price, then, and we know what they are able to do for us, that is better than a university degree that we can pass on to our children, because now we're building wealth. Now it's generational, now it's multi-generational. So that is why I'm here. Over the years I've developed the rebuilder system, which enables any buyer to ask the agents all the questions they need to ask in order to make an informed buyer decision, and how to actually check the answers they get to make sure, all your risks are exposed and you know what you're going into up front before you sign on the dotted line. Because my heart is specifically for women who have families or are on their own, and you want to invest in a property and you're told it's an asset, but you don't know if it really is, because you don't have the information on hand to make that decision, and you have to rely on industry, which is a conflict of interest. Industry is there to make money for industry. They focus on sales and not focus on investment. Agents are not trained on investments. They are trained on closing sales and on the transfer process. Look at this, isn't it absolutely stunning? Anyway, that's enough for today, but that is my love, is to expose value in undervalued properties and to teach people the system. It is a system. We can leverage the existing system to our benefit, which at the moment is not taking place. What I love about travel is you get to see these incredible buildings with so much history, which of course in South Africa we don't have, not this level. house workmanship, it's just incredible. And the detail, look at these windows. And don't you just love them? So many of these buildings still have the very original glass and windows in them. It's so beautifully done with those moldings. You can't imagine how they did it back then.